I'll give everyone a couple minutes before we get started, or just a little bit longer. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Business webinar. My name is Brooke Quinn, and I am a business development representative here at the Lake Superior Community Partnership. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know about some housekeeping rules. If you do have any questions during the webinar, there is a question box at the bottom of your screen. And if you do have a question, feel free to ask at any time. I will see the questions as they come in, and I will answer them during or at the end of the webinar. My contact information, along with other members of the business development team, will be at the end as well. And during this webinar, I will be going through some of the topic discussions to starting a business. And these topics include organizational types, where to file, and other state and federal filings, sales and use tax, and pricing. To start off, this slide shows the two most common small business organizations. The first being a sole proprietor, also known as a doing business as, and the other is a limited liability company. For a DBA, this form will be filed or filled out at the county clerk's office, and it is one of the easier forms to fill out and can be completed in one day. A DBA can last up to 5 years before it would be needed to be renewed. And when that time does come, a notice will be sent to you to reapply. And one thing to note about a DBA is that it only covers the county in which you file the form in. For example, if a business filed in Marquette County, the license is only required or only covered throughout Marquette County. And if you are looking to expand your business or wanting to set up shop in other counties, a DBA may not be the best option to choose for your business. And a DBA through Marquette County is cost effective. This only costs $10 to file, and however, this will vary from county to county. This is a one-time fee, which is beneficial and will expire in 5 years, like I mentioned earlier. And this is something that will also be filed individually on your tax returns. And when you are doing your tax returns, it would say, for example, Brooke doing business as the LSCP. The second most common type of entity formed is a limited liability company, or an LLC. This form can be filed for $50 on your own directly with the state and can be just as cost effective. This form will need to be renewed annually and will cost $25 to do so. The renewal will secure the name of the business and protect other individuals from taking that name. I will talk more later about where to file and what to look for when choosing a business name. But the LLC can also be filed on your individual taxes. And when filing, unlike a DBA, this can take up to 5 to 7 business days to be approved by the state. It may take longer depending on how busy the state is. And there have also been times when we have received LLCs the same day or even a day later. It really just all depends. Another great benefit to an LLC is the amount of protection it can provide. A way to look at it is with the LLC protection, it keeps you and the business separate. For example, let's say I opened XYZ business and then someone is suing for an injury that happened at my business. With an LLC, they would be suing XYZ business first, whereas a DBA, the person would be suing you directly since you are doing business as yourself. Although these are the two most common for small businesses, there are other organizations such as corporations, nonprofits, L3Cs, which is a hybrid to a nonprofit and a for-profit. When filing for an LLC, the state has made it much easier to do. The LLC filing can be done either online or can be submitted through the mail. And to file, you would just go through Laura's corporate division page, which is the licensing and regulatory affairs to the state of Michigan, and choose how you would like to file. And a few things to consider when applying for an LLC would be doing a business entity search. It's a simple search that can be done on their corporate division page as well. The reason being, we suggest a business entity search is to make sure that name in which you are wanting to choose to name your business is not already taken in some way. A name may seem unique to you, and when you do the search in the database, there are 20 different organizations with the same variation of that name. This leads to the next point of always having backup names for a business, just in case there are numerous businesses with the same name. LLC and DBA filings are not the only filings that need to be considered. After you do get your LLC or DBA filed and set up, on this slide are the other files that need to be taken into consideration. These 3 sites are all things that the LSCP can assist you with. I will show you the 3 links and each website and what each website does look like. So the first link is the IRS webpage, which we like to reference as the Social Security number for your business. This number is needed to open up a bank account for your business, and some suppliers do require this as well. Filing for your federal EIN through the IRS is a simple form, yet can be very nitpicky, but still the simplest out of the 3 to fill out. I do not recommend filing for this number until the LLC or DBA documentation is filed first. The main reason being is that it is difficult to change once it is created. For example, if the state kicks back your LLC for any reason, such as your business name is too similar to another already filed and the name needs to be changed, then there will be paperwork that would need to be sent to the IRS for that change. And this process can be pretty lengthy. So waiting those few extra days for the LLC documentation can save you so much time. And on this link here is just the preview of the EIN application, and it's a fairly simple application process. Begin application. And this is just a simple overview of which type you would like to file, and then so on and so forth. The second link provided is the Michigan Treasury Online. This is where you would apply for the sales tax and use tax information. And once you have that information, you can log into the site and you would report your tax information there. And the tax can be paid monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on or however you would like your payment to be set up. And the third link provided shows how to have your sales tax streamlined. This site makes it easy if you are selling in multiple states. This gives the advantage of logging into just one site instead of multiple sites, and allows you to pay all your taxes for all of those states at the same time. If you are selling through Etsy or Amazon, for example, which have multiple locations, it is required to pay sales tax in each state that they may have like a warehouse located. So this site makes it so much easier to use. And it provides a ton of information to kind of help navigate this site as well. Alrighty, now we are going to dive into taxes. First up is sales tax. Sales tax is the 6% tax that is paid to the state for any tangible good that is sold. It is required to collect this from the consumer if you are acting as the retailer. And this can be paid annually, quarterly, or monthly through the MTO site, which we just went over. If you are a one-time vendor, such as you are working at the Christmas craft show or the local farmers market here in town for a day, you would fill out the 2271 form and file that within 3 days of the event. Use tax is the tax that is required to be paid for items purchased out of the state that you do not pay sales tax on. Let's just say that I purchased 10 picture frames from Ohio and I did not want to, and I did not pay sales tax on those frames. I would bring those back to Michigan and decorate them with UP logos and everything, and I go to sell them. I would be required by the state to pay sales tax to Michigan on what I did purchase. And one thing to know is that it is one or the other. You would not have to pay two sales tax. You would not have to pay one use tax and then a sales tax later on. Another note is taking the same example is if I do happen to pay sales tax on those frames I purchased in Ohio and the sales tax was 5%. Then I go to sell them in Michigan where it is 6% sales tax. I am required by law for myself to pay that 1% difference to the state of Michigan. And this can be confusing. And on the tax website, as I mentioned earlier, this has a ton of information that can help with that and kind of help navigate that. And now we're on to pricing. Pricing your product is what we are going to talk about next. And this can be more of an art than a science. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. Where it can get tricky is when we talk more about overhead and labor costs. We do have a spreadsheet that will make this much simpler than it sounds, and it will be sent to you later on. And when plugging in the information, it's good to know what the data actually is you are working with. And materials is one of them. And materials is an important piece and what would be put into the main cost of your product. For example, are there any buttons, threads, fabrics, any materials are what make up the product. If I were selling picture frames and I bought 10 for $10, I would price them as $1 per product. And labor is a little tricky, but time is money. And there is a vast range of discussion on how to decipher what to charge for labor costs. The most common is between $10 and $20, depending on what you're making. And there is a big difference, however, putting 100% of your focus into making the product versus something that is being created in your spare time. Meaning if I am on my lunch break or watching Netflix while knitting a sweater, I am not 100% focused on it during that time. But when I am focused on but if I am focused on knitting that sweater all day, then I would want to look into a higher wage range. If I'm not focused, I might want to look at maybe a $4 to $5 an hour range. Once you have the information in there, you would want to do a price comparison of the product price to make sure it is favorable to your competitors. Next would be packaging. And this would be depending on if you are doing something or some type of packaging for your product and not just a standalone product that would not need any packaging. Packaging would need to be factored into the price as well if you are doing it. And shipping would be put into the price too if your business does do shipping. Overhead is one that can also be confusing, but it does not have to be. There's a lot that goes into this category, such as rent, marketing, utilities, equipment, and websites, which is just a few to name. And when thinking of overhead, one thing to consider is how or where you're making the product. Is it in a studio, your home? If it's in your home, there will be some math involved to figuring out that price. And we love math. If creating in your home, you would take the monthly mortgage divided by the square footage of the house, then take the square foot of the room you're working in and come up with the monthly rent for that room for yourself. This will be the same for utilities. Also included in the price, to name a few, would be the domain and maintenance cost. I understand this can be a lot of information, but the LSCP can definitely help navigate this with you. And when diving into wholesale pricing, this is where you would sell your finished product to a retailer. The cost would usually cost less than what you would charge the end user, since the retailer will mark up the price of the product to the consumer. The formula listed on the side is what you would use to find the wholesale price. And to find that price, it would be the cost of materials plus labor plus expenses plus the markup price, or the markup for profit, which I will explain in a little bit. So let's say you are selling directly to the consumer. You would want to look at the wholesale price and times that by 2 if you're going to be acting as the retailer. We do suggest multiply by 2 as a baseline, to then compare your price to competitors. Everything, just as a reminder that everything I am discussing today is very broad, so keep that in mind. Another thing to consider in your pricing would be your margins. The margins would be the price you are selling your product for minus the cost it would be to manufacture the product. As your efficiency grows, so will your margins. An example would be if I am making widgets. I start out by making only 4 an hour, then 2 years later, and I am making 20 widgets an hour. As my efficiency grows, I would want to increase my margin because I have improved from what I started, or from where I started. Now I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that I mentioned earlier to kind of bring this to life. So this spreadsheet makes it, excuse me, this spreadsheet makes it simple to input your numbers and does the majority of the work for you. There are formulas in these cells here, which make it easy to input numbers at the bottom of the spreadsheet, where it would compute the numbers for you and give you the total. I have one that is completed for an example, and this one is with a zipper bag. I have the cost of a zipper for one bag being 35 cents. I'm sorry if this is a bit light, but you can also get the later at the end of the day to kind of play around with it. But for this case, I have 35 cents for a zipper, $1 for a fabric, 25 cents for lining, and 10 cents for like needles, threads, and which brings the total for $1.70. My overhead costs are listed here. And this cost includes rent, marketing, business cards, and equipment. And this cost adds up to $350 for a yearly overhead cost. My overhead cost per item, or per year per item, since it already calculated it for me, will be $1.75. Under labor, I have put how long it takes me to do each part of the bag, which adds up to 20 minutes. In this example, I put my hourly rate as $20. So my labor cost would be $6.67. And below that, it calculated my break-even point at $10.12. Like I mentioned, under the profit margin, this percentage can be changed, but for this example, I put my margin at 50%. And here we took the margin and times that by the break-even price to get the profit of $5.06. This is the price I would want to make each bag that I make. And below that would be the price with the profit margin, which is $15.18. And to go even further, here's the price I would want to sell my bag if I were to sell it to a wholesaler, which would be $20.23. And if I was acting as the retailer, I would sell it as $40.47. directly to the consumer. All of these darker numbers will automatically be calculated for you. And the other numbers you would have to put in manually. And as a reminder, the spreadsheet will be emailed later to you. Okay. And here is the contact information for our business development team. If you do have any questions about anything, please do contact us. I know this can seem overwhelming, and we are more than happy to help. At this time, I will be looking at some of the questions that were submitted. All right, it looks like someone in the audience asked, how long does it take to get your sales tax information? This one is one of the lengthier time to get it back to you. And after you file your DBA or LLC and your EIN filed, you would go and apply for your sales tax information. This can be up to 3 to 4 weeks to receive it. Even though you may not have your sales tax number in hand, that does not mean you can't sell your products. As long as you have your confirmation number that you applied for your sales tax, you can still do business. Alrighty, and it looks like there's another question. Can the LSCP help me get my LLC started? Absolutely. We would happily get your LLC started with you. We work with businesses from all the stages of life, from startup all the way to succession planning. We can help file all of the proper paperwork for your LLC, and that is including your EIN and your sales tax number. Feel free to reach out to me and we can set up an appointment to get your LLC started. And it looks like there are no more questions. I just want to say thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day today.